Without any further ado, I would like to begin the session with first of all welcoming Maya Kopf, who's coming from us, from the University of Hamburg, with a very exciting project. Maya is a PhD candidate there. She's also a member of the DGS Corpus project team. She works on sign language data, compatibility methods for corpus building, and she has an increasing interest in onomastic studies, interplay of language agenda and sign languages, etc. And we're all very excited for such an innovative project, I might say, just see how onomastics exactly work in deaf signing communities. So, yeah, the floor is yours, and thank you again.
Oh, thank you so much for the introduction. So I think here everything is said, and the title of my presentation is Name Changes and Name Coexistence in Deaf Signing Communities in Germany. So let me begin with a little bit of background on the topic. Here you can see the former Chancellor of Germany, Merkel, and I think you will know her. And beneath you see a signer using the sign name for Merkel, and it looks like this in movement, Merkel. And it references her quite strong cheek folds. But then when we look further, we see other signers using another sign, namely this one. And this references her hairline. As you can see in this picture, I think it is around this haircut that it was, that this sign is used. And then we see even other signers using a third one, namely this one, indicating the length of her hair. And here we see that that is even maybe an older sign for her. So in fact, we don't have a sign name for Merkel, but we have sign names, name sign, sorry, name sign for Merkel. And for everyone wondering, there is also one referencing this very common gesture of her, but it's not within my data, so therefore I cannot show it used by signers. But now let me get one step back. What are sign names? So sign names are signs that are used between signers to reference to persons. They are not used to address people. This is quite logical when you think about sign languages being languages of the visual manual modality, meaning that you need eye contact to communicate. And to gain eye contact with the person you want to communicate, it's better to touch the person or wave. Because if you just use the sign name and the person is looking away, the person will not see it. Therefore, they're only used for personal reference. Sign names are not from a fixed inventory, but they stem from the general vocabulary of a sign language, most sign names. Some are also made up, or different signs are combined into a new sign. And there are very different strategies how one chooses a sign name. You already learned one strategy, namely the reference to a visual cue that is very prominent, like the haircut of Merkel or her cheek folds. Another strategy would be to use a transparent surname and translate it into the sign language. So, for example, I forgot to say this in the beginning, my own sign name is Maria, and it is a translation of my surname, which is head in German, Kopf. And so this is also a strategy. And this is then not my family name, but it is just my normal name sign. Most name signs are not unique, so two people can have the same name sign, but they are independent of legal names, meaning that if you have two Julias, they will have or can have different sign names. And they are a very important marker for group membership. So most hearing people feel a little bit proud when they get their name sign because it means they have entered the deaf community. Then another topic is marking gender on name signs. And so far, most sign languages that are described don't mark gender on their name signs, but there are a few, mainly in the Asian region, who do mark gender on name signs. And name signs are accompanied by the articulation of the legal name on the mouth. And this is mostly with very little voice or no voice. So I would say, and you wouldn't hear anything, you would just see it on the mouth. And there is plenty more that I could say here, but I keep it short to come to my topic. And that is name changes and name coexistence. So when I saw in my data that people have several names, I was wondering if this is described in the literature for sign languages. So I checked that and I found some descriptions, but there is no big study on this. And what I found are some key points like name changes when people are unsatisfied with their name, or also if other people are unsatisfied with the name of someone. So this can also be done by somebody else, the change of name. Then I found that there is one school that has like a system of very short-lived names. So pupils change their name a lot, but I think this is not in Germany, but somewhere else. And then very common name changes happen if somebody marries or moves to a new town, or sometimes if the physical appearance changes. So for example, the new haircut, but it is not a must be. So the name sign can change with the appearance, but it has not, must not. And also a new trait can lead to a name change. For name coexistence, we see that different social groups sometimes use different name signs for the same individual, but there is also description of simultaneous names within one community. And then I found also a little bit about distinguishing people with the same name sign, meaning that they get like a by name, if you want so that two signers with the same name can be, or it is more clear who we are signing about, and then they get the sign name, for example, their occasion. And also, of course, alternate name signs that are used behind one's back, meaning that the signer themselves don't know about it. So then further on, I was wondering, what about spoken language? What about legal names? And here I found a lot about name changes, but not so much about name coexistence. For name changes, I found that they are mostly attached to big changes in life. So, for example, adoption, sexual maturity, and initiation rites, then marrying, becoming parents, or dying. So, if you have different names for dead people, or a change in identity, like changing the gender class or the faith, and also change as protection. So, if you want to kind of get anonymous and you change your name. For name coexistence, I found a little bit literature. So, for example, that multiple first names are more common in higher social classes and associated with more prestige. Then also that multiple names are used for addressing as a part of social positioning. And here I want to give an example. So, for example, when I go with my baby boy to the doctor, and then when I register at the doctor's office, I use the legal name of him. But then later on in the waiting area, I use my pet name for him and call him Little Stink. So this would be a social positioning as first the official mother and later like the mother, the playful mother or so. And then, of course, bynames are used often in multiplicity and hypochoristics in romantic relationships. And if any one of you has more literature on this, I'm happy to hear about this. Okay, so now looking at my data. I work with the DGS corpus, and the DGS corpus is from the project with the same name, so the DGS corpus project. And this is a long-term project here in Hamburg, which started 2009 and will end in 2027. The aim is to document German Sign Language and also do research on it. The DGS corpus collects signers, so we film them and then we make the data available publicly online. And we have two cohorts, meaning that between 2009 and 2011, we already filmed 330 signers from all ages and all regions of Germany. And now, since last year, we again are filming 70 signers, and these are all beneath the age of 32. In this way, we have a big example of older and newer language and older people and younger people. And altogether, at the moment, there are 560 hours of signing, and 50 hours are publicly available. And for people here working with spoken language corpora, this will seem very little. But for sign language, this is huge. Like this is a huge amount of data that we have here. And it is also one of the biggest corpora on fluent signing worldwide. So for this study, I concentrate on the first task that is used to elicit data from the signers, and this is called sign name. And the aim is to warm up the participants and that they introduce each other, introduce themselves to each other. So they are just asked to show the name sign and to explain its origin. And this is important because in this task, we don't have a fixed list of questions. It is very open and flexible, meaning that signers can answer with just their sign name, full stop, nothing else, or they can explain about older sign names or coexisting sign names. They can explain the origin, but not everyone does. So please think of this when I talk about my numbers, because it means that there could be higher numbers because we didn't explicitly ask if they have older names. They just told about it when they wanted or thought about it. And the data is not public, so I cannot show the examples, but I brought examples with me that are very similar in the way that they are working, but they are made up so that the signers stay anonymous. Okay, so now looking at my results. In total, I took a sample. So I didn't analyze all signers, but from the 330 that there are at the moment, I took 104 signers. And this sample is balanced for gender, age, and region. And all these signers together named 175 different name signs. And of these name signs, 30 are family or surnames, which I did not analyze, and 145 are first names, and I analyzed these. I also excluded variants. And then I found that most signers, as you can see here in the chart, have one name or name one name. But there are also signers that have two names or three names. Nobody talked about four names, so it seems like three is the maximum. But we find one signer that says or signs that he has no sign name. Now looking into these names a little bit more in detail. So we have the act of naming. So when do people get their name? And here I identified three groups. And these three groups are the landmarks that signers told when they got the name. So one is, and the biggest, is rite de passage, meaning this is a big change in life and it's important for identity. For example, entering school, nursery or university, moving to a new town or marry. Another group of signers indicated this period in or this time with their age, saying it was at birth or childhood, youth or adulthood. Of course, a signer could also say in school, and it's the same as childhood. So this is just what they indicate as the important thing that happened, that they got their name. And this is also a quite big group. And a third little group indicated that it was when joining a group. So for example, they started a new work, they entered a sports team, the deaf club, or went to a summer camp. That's when they got their name sign. So now we want to look at who gave the name. And here we see a very big group. And this group is the peer group. And this means not an individual in the peer group, but really the peer group as a collective. And this is what most signers said is the name giver. And this is, for me, it's very interesting that it's not an individual, but just this collective amount of people. And then another big group is the family. So for example, the husband, or it's inherited. So it's kind of the family as a collective, or the parents or mother or siblings like the brother. A third group are acquaintances. And so this is single person, so a friend or just one single person from the deaf peer group. And then a very small group are authority figures like teachers and educators. And the last very small group are name bearers themselves. And this one, I think, is not very common. So in all my data, this only is described by two signers, and one of them changed their own name 2 times. So that's why it's all in all three, a count of three. But I think that this is not very common, and I wonder if the community will accept it if the name bureau themselves changes the name. When we look at name changes versus coexistence, we see that name changes are clearly happening more often. So 26 of the signers or 26 of the names are new names that are replacing the old name, and only 14 are coexisting with the old name. Okay, so what are the reasons why people get a new name? One reason is that they are unhappy with the name, or more often that the peer group is unhappy, or a partner or friend is unhappy with the name. And reasons can be, for example, that the name is insulting or finger spelled. Like, so if you spell the name with your fingers, for some signers, this is not a proper name sign. Also, when you enter a new peer group, like we said before, the school or work, but also changes to your legal name. This is mostly when you marry, or a change in appearance, like we had with the hairstyle, or also a sickness. So, for example, if you have a cut on your face, it can indicate a new name sign. And then some signers also told that they have simultaneous names within one community. So different signs are used for them. And community related, then I called the group that is that's very interesting. So when people start engaging a lot with the deaf community or fighting for the sign language or for deaf rights, they sometimes get a new name sign to kind of to worship this engagement with the community. And the last point, transparency, means that signers have a transparent legal name, which is translated. And this one is used only with coexisting names. And the signer who tell that they have this transparent name sign as a coexisting name have a sign name that is not transparent, which they only use in their local peer group. And then nationwide, in the bigger peer group, the transparent name sign is used because it is much easier to remember, or you can kind of do it on ad hoc. And if I compare this with the literature that I presented in the beginning, I see that it's very aligning with the literature that there is on sign language names, but it seems a little bit different from spoken languages in the way that there are a lot of cases that are not described in my data. So, for example, adoption, sexual maturity, parenthood, death, and the change of identity, they're all not documented in my data, but that does not mean that they are not there in the communities, but maybe people just didn't tell about it, or it could also be that these things are not so important within the community. But I think that would be interesting to do more study on. And so what are reasons for coexisting name signs? Mostly that different peer groups exist. So most signers who have coexisting names use one in the deaf club and one in the sports team, for example. And also that the old peer group, if you want so, keeps the name in the sense of when you move in the old town, they still use your old name, but in a new town, you have your new name. Or also that your parents still use the old name that they gave you at birth. And I also see cases where the signer themselves use the old name because they don't like the new one they got from the peer group, but the whole peer group uses the new one. And this aligns with sign language literature again, and not so much with spoken language literature. And I also have one case in the sign language literature that is described with the bynames that I told you, that like bynames are used to separate people with the same name sign. I cannot see this in my data. In my data, people say that if you enter a group and your sign name is already used there, you get a new one because you are the person who is newer to the group, and so your name is changed. And bynames are not used to separate people. Okay, to make this a little bit more tangible, I brought examples with me. And as I said, these are made up examples, but the systematicity is the same as the ones from my data, so the original names. So first of all, we have Bugs Bunny. So Bugs Bunny has two names, and the first one is a translation of the transparent surname, which is very common in Germany, meaning farmer, Bauer, and it's a design Bauer. So this would be the first name. And then the second name is typing. And this name Bugs Bunny got because the partner disliked the first name. So the Bauer sign name was seen as not nice. So the partner just changed it. And everybody just went along and also used the new one. And why typing? Because Bugs Bunny worked as a typist for 30 years. So here we see a name change due to disliking by the partner. And I see that I'm running out of time, so I try to be very fast here. Okay, so here we have Tweety. Tweety has three names. And to make this a little bit shorter, this is due to a change in hairstyle. So we have first a ponytail, then later on we have a page boy haircut, and this is changed. And then in a different situation in the sports team, it's a point to the cheek due to a mole on the cheek. And then here we have, I think it's Duffy. Yeah, Duffy has a name sign referencing the legal name Rose, using this flower sign. But then there were too many people in the peer group having similar names, also with this connection to flowers. So the peer group decided that it's not useful, so they changed it to fast because Duffy is a fast walker. And then my last example is Tess. So Tess had the sign name Strong because Tess was a very strong child, which was an interesting characteristic for a child. And this later on was changed when Tess married. Tess took over the name sign from the husband, which is fishing, because the husband likes to go fishing. And this is very interesting because Tess doesn't need to like fishing. And also, this is not a family name or a surname. It's really like the kind of first name. And it's just adopted from the husband. And this I only see with women in my data. So no man tells that he changed the name when marrying. Only women do this. So far, what I see. Okay, so now to my conclusion. I have 4 take-home messages for you. The first is that name givers in the deaf communities in Germany can not only be single persons, but also the deaf peer group as a collective. That name changes are more common than name coexistence, that there are multifaceted reasons for name changes and name coexistence, and that not all phenomena described for spoken languages or legal names are found in my data yet. So I'm curious what I will find later on. And here are some references and also my picture sources. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Maria. I hope we can all give Maria a virtual upload. It was really great, and thank you for sharing all this exciting data with us. It sounds like a fascinating project, and I'm sure we are all looking forward to seeing more out of it. And thank you very much for saying, for actually having an interest in the onomastic approaches to that data. I was wondering if anyone from the audience could have any question or would like to hear more. We do have some comments in the chat, which I'm pretty sure you can see them yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for the praise.
Do I have any questions for Maria? Well, I think people need to think a bit about what you just said. So I may actually take advantage of my role and ask a question myself. So I'm quite interested in name giving myself. So I was really curious about the cases where the individuals gave were their own name givers. They picked names for themselves. And I was wondering, I know your data is very limited in this case, which is itself very interesting, because my thoughts would be to what extent the names they're using have actually a link to their self-identity. I mean, and the way they identify themselves, or their identity, because in speaking communities, verbal speaking communities, it is quite a common thing that has been explored exhaustively in literature, but I don't think that anything like this has ever happened for a signing community. So I was wondering if, I mean, you have any thoughts about this?
Yeah, I'm also wondering a lot about this. And so in my data, I see that one person who gives themselves their own name just uses the one that the community gave and changes it. So it's not a completely new name. It's just changed a little bit so that the person likes it more in the way it looks. And the other person doesn't tell anything about it. It's just, this is the name, I chose it. That's it. And I think in the literature, there is also some other sign language communities from different countries that don't really accept this, so that it's like a taboo to choose the own name. So this would be interesting to look at. And then I would also love to look at people from the queer signing community because there is this wonderful paper on people who change their gender identity, that they choose their own name, and what reasons and thoughts are behind that. And I was wondering how that is with deaf queer communities. And I talked to one person that I know changing the gender identity, and this person didn't change the name sign. And I wonder if that is because name signs are not connected to gender. So that could be a reason, but I don't know. And so I would love to do some research on that. Yes.
Yeah, and please keep us posted, because I think the links between names and identity, it is something that has been explored, but with signing communities, not at all. So I think that it could be very fascinating to link that. We have some questions from the audience now in chat. First is Sarah, who's asking, how do you distinguish between a name sign and a by name?
Oh, that is a very good question. And I'm wondering that myself a lot. For me, a by name does not have the same importance because a sign name is really this full identity as a deaf person. And it is, for me, it seems like a legal name in this language. But as sign languages are discriminated still a lot, it's difficult to have it kind of legal. But I know a case in, I think it's Great Britain, that a person was able to put the sign name into the driver license. So that was an official document stating the sign name. And so for that, I wouldn't say that sign names in general are by names, but I think that there are similar things like by names in sign languages also. So maybe if you have your official sign name, but then in your romantic relationship, you have a different name. Or, for example, the thing I told with then adding a second name to your sign name to indicate which one of the, I don't know, Sarahs you are. So I think that could be a kind of sign name within this system, but to categorize all name signs as by names, I think that would not fully grasp the concept of name signs.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Another question from Agyo Luapo. I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name, speaking about names. The question is more of a clarification about your comment on that name signs are not used for addressing. If you could clarify a bit.
Yeah,
please,
so when I will just do this with an example again. So if two signers meet, they will not use the sign name for each other in this conversation of the two, but they will just, if one looks away, they will touch the signer or wave in this way or that way to get the attention of the signer, because you need eye contact to sign with each other. But the name will be used when a third signer enters and two of them are no, and let's say one of the first ones exits the room again, because if the signer is there, you will also just point. So it really is used if you reference to people not in the room, because otherwise you would just point or touch or do things like that. Yeah.
Great. Great. So thank you so much, Maya. It was wonderful. And I'm pretty sure that perhaps more comments come in as the event goes on. But thank you again. So if you would all like to give another round of virtual applause to Maria for her
Thank you so
excellent
much.
and thought-provoking paper. Thank you, Maria. And